Hey everybody, HeadspaceConnections back with another video. This time the topic of our video is going to be discussing something that we do not hear very much about or haven't really seen much of, and it's called Scotopic Sensitivity Syndrome, or Irlen syndrome, or otherwise also known as Erlenmeyer syndrome. Now, if you guys are wondering why we're wearing shades, we're going to go into a little more detail on that in a second. But basically what Irlen syndrome is it's a brain processing disorder where the brain can't process certain wavelengths of light. But we're going to read you a little bit of an excerpt that we got from our diagnostician. We do have Irlen syndrome ourselves. We are more on the severe scale, and we're going to go into a little more detail on that also. But it brings out some people are sensitive to certain light waves, often stemming from fluorescent lights, without knowing this because it has always been that way for them. When reading, they see words flying off the page, wavy lines, letters with a halo effect, or overlapping letters. The visual information derived from reading cannot be processed adequately in the brain and instead bounces around in a person's head. Consequently, persons may experience excess energy, headaches, nausea, and other physical symptoms that manifest themselves in symptoms that are similar to ADHD. Now, again, this is just a short summary. We're going to go into a little more details on it, about what it is, what methods they use, and kind of like visual reps of what people actually see when you have Irlen syndrome. And for those of you that are familiar with our video reviewing our book, that we got from our screener personally, the Irlen Revolution. Highly recommend that for those of you that have Irlen's or may think you have it. It goes into way more detail. But it brings out a person with Irlen syndrome never sees the letters, words, or sentences clearly and aligned. Some can't see periods, commas, or lines in a notebook. This results in reading and writing difficulties similar to dyslexia. Now, scotopic sensitivity, or Irlen's, can be a standalone condition or exist with other learning differences. Now, we do, from the book that we read for the Irlen Revolution, it is more common in people with processing disorders already, like autism, ADHD, ADD, and dyslexia, and things like that. However, it can also be a standalone issue. It's just more common in people with other processing issues. But treatment consists of using colored overlays, which we're going to show, colored papers, and specially designed glasses and contact lenses. And that is what the glasses are, is they are part of our Irlen's treatment. Now, there is some debate for those of you that are systems like DID systems and in general that, as you know, there is actual scientific evidence for DID, but you're going to find some naysayers that try to, say, oh, that's not real, that's placebo, whatever. But there's actually scientific proof and evidence, like I said, with the DID that show the differences. This is actually a little comic book thing that we're not going to really show into, but this is basically a brain without spectrum filters. Now, as you can see, all these light parts right here is brain activity. Brain activity is through the roof for, somebody with Irlen's and without their filters. And I can guarantee you that's about what it feels like when we don't have ours on. Now, of course, because, all of the ultra-wise, we're all different. Some of us don't need them. Some of us can just use our regular prescription glasses. Some of us just need a pair of sunglasses. It just depends. But majority of the time, we can kind of tell if we need them or the person that's fronting at the time needs them. Is eye sensitivity starts to quadruple, get really sensitive, or start to feel like our anxiety is growing. depending on the light and the area that we're in. Like for us, you guys would look at us and think, oh, they're wearing sunglasses or shades. No, for us, the world looks like it would normally if we weren't wearing them. It's just that they just help process the certain wavelengths of light that our brain overworks trying to decipher itself. But then also, here's the picture with Irlen spectral filters. Look at that brain activity and how much smaller or how much less there is of the overreaction and the overworking calming. I think that the first time that when we were getting screened, you have to get screened twice. You'll go through one screening to see how severe your Irlen's is. We are on the very severe end of the spectrum. So we had to have lenses, color filters. If we go outside, depending on how bright the light is, we have to wear a hat with a visor, something with a visor. Colored paper will go into that too. There's just so many things that basically, if you have Irlen syndrome, white is your enemy. But it also brings out about how people with Irlen syndrome will see things. Now, we didn't have all of these. Let's see if we can get it to where you guys can see that. But these are some of the different symptoms. We want to show them because we know that there is somebody out there that's going to be looking at this and thinking, oh my God, I have that. Like the different kinds of line work and the things that happen for somebody with Irlen's and how difficult it can be for somebody with it to be able to function without filters. But see, because of the autism for us, we went for a good while without even really thinking about it. Because we just thought, oh, well, we're autistic, so maybe it's just autism sensitivity. No. After we got screened, the lady that was screening us was like, no, you have a whole other problem altogether. It's like, oh, that's good. Thanks. But what the craziest thing is that for us to even be able to get screened for it, we had to drive to a town 2 hours away from where we live because she was the only screener that was qualified to screen us for it. 2 hours away. And then our diagnostician, Julie Yaxley, is in Houston, Texas, and that's an 8-hour drive for us. Now, we have somebody in a clinic closer to us, but price-wise, it was going to be way more, and we don't have insurance right now, so we worked with what we had. But let's see. A little more information on what a screening does and how it can help. It says a screening determines if a particular color of overlay, which these are the different overlays that they will give you. Ours is peach, so ours is kind of an orange, light orangey color. There are different colors. They have goldenrod, reds, greens, blues. Like I said, everybody's Irlen's is different because everybody's brain processes things differently. So that's why they recommend do not screen yourself. Get screened by a professional because the process is crazy in depth. But it says, screening determines if a particular color of overlay, transparent plastic sheet, like this, can aid reading by reducing visual stress. Overlays are commonly allowed as accommodations in examinations, can also help clients at home and work. Screening also determines if clients are likely to benefit from precision spectral filters. Specific tint color worn as glasses, which is what we have on right now, is our spectral filters, which, along with aiding reading, is designed to reduce light sensitivity, help with visual distortions in the environment, minimize headaches and migraines. A separate appointment is made for the Irlen filter diagnostic. All appointments allow generous time periods. What is Irlen syndrome? Irlen syndrome is caused by sensitivity to particular wavelengths of light. It is a difficulty with visual processing rather than an optical problem, so not identified by a standard eye test. You literally have to have a psychologist or a screener that has to go through their own testing for this specific problem in order to be able to actually be tested for it. It occurs across the population, and gifted people can have Irlen syndrome. So it's not just people that have learning disabilities. It is hereditary, but can also be brought on by a brain or head injury, which we've had enough of those ourselves. Can occur in those with a learning disability such as dyslexia, ADHD, and autism. Some psychological and medical conditions, which include aspects of light sensitivity, processing difficulties, and sensory overload, have also been helped by the Irlen method, for instance, depression, light-induced epilepsy, and Lyme disease. Some current and former members of armed forces are also benefiting from this process. Which makes sense, you know. Especially if, like, Army or things like that, PTSD give me a problem. Now, goes into how does it manifest? Visual stress, physical symptoms, headaches, dry, itchy eyes. Had dry, itchy eyes for years and just always thought it was allergies. Light sensitivity, especially bright fluorescent lights. Again, thought that it was just autism related. Reading difficulties, slow, can't read for long, difficulty tracking, distortions of the text, poor comprehension, can't copy from the board. We're actually more speed readers, but we had really bad distortions, difficulty tracking, poor comprehension. Again, we thought it was probably just autism related. Difficulty maintaining concentration and focus. Irlen screeners, from what our experience is, there's 2 different screenings. The first one will prescribe a particular color of overlay to alleviate clients' particular symptoms. And also, she gave us a packet of our colored paper, which we don't have the actual paper, but it is pastel paper, Xerox, lilac? Lilac was our color. Basically, if you can get your stuff printed on it, testing, exams, any kind of... She even sent us, like, the patterns for, like, graphing and lined notebook paper type thing. It was really cool. So much difference. So much. If colored overlays improve text, the next stage can be colored lenses, as what we have here. But an Irlen diagnostician has to do that one, because they'll, depending on who it is... Ours took like 2 or 3 hours. We'll determine a combination of colors to form the filters. The filters do not color the surroundings. As we said to you guys, it looks like we're wearing sunglasses. To us, we see the world as we would if we weren't wearing them. And where my screener is, like I said, her name is Julie Yaxley. And she is in a clinic called the Carol and Ronald Chris Samaritan Counseling Center. She's actually a special education specialist too. But for us, when our processing went in there, like I said, 2 or 3 hours, and usually the most common is like 5 or 6 layers of color. Because what they do is they determine the colors that need to be filtered and the degree. We have 8 layers on ours. So, yeah, we were in pretty bad shape. But we're going to go ahead and read a little bit of this. Like, talks about the symptoms related to Irlen's, because we feel like it'll help somebody out, especially if they think that they might have it. Highly recommend either checking out Julie's personal website. It's yaxley-irlens.com, or checking out the actual Irlen website itself. And we're going to post links to both of those pages in the description of our video. But let's see. Irlen syndrome, also referred to as Myers-Irlen syndrome, Scotopic sensitivity syndrome. Scotopic is what it was known as when they were first discovering it and first doing research on it. And visual stress is not an optical problem. It's a problem in the brain's ability to process visual information. Like I said, it tends to run in families, is not currently identified by medical tests, and is often diagnosed as ADD, and sufferers were given medication unnecessarily. It can affect many different areas, including academic and work performance, behavior, attention, ability to sit still, and concentration. It manifests itself differently in each individual and is often a lifetime barrier to learning and performance. If you suffer from any of the following, Irlen syndrome might be your problem. It says, prints look differently, environment looks different, slow or inefficient reading, poor comprehension, eye strain, fatigue, headaches, difficulty with math, computation. So bad at math, so bad. Difficulty copying, difficulty reading music. Oh, band camp was fun. Poor sports performances. Poor depth perception. Low motivation. Low self-esteem. More symptoms of Irlen syndrome. Light sensitivity. Bothered by glare, fluorescent lights, bright lights, sunlight, and sometimes light at night. Driving sucked. Some individuals experience physical symptoms and feel tired, sleepy, dizzy, anxious, or irritable. Others experience headaches, mood changes, restlessness, or have difficulty staying focused, especially when under bright or fluorescent lights. And you wonder why school was so terrible. Reading problems include poor comprehension, misread words, problems tracking from line to line, reads in dim light, skips words or lines, reads slowly or hesitantly, takes breaks, loses place, avoids reading. No, we love to read, we just did it terribly. Discomfort, strain and fatigue, tired, sleepy, headache or nausea, fidgety or restless, eyes that hurt or become watery. Ours was more burning, but yeah, same difference. Attention and concentration problems, writing problems, unequal spacing, unequal letter size, writing up or downhill, or inconsistent spelling. You ever do that when you're writing on something, even if it's lined, and you just slowly see your words start going up or down? Yeah, that's fun. Other characteristics, strain or fatigue from computer use, difficulty reading music, sloppy, careless math errors, misaligned numbers and columns, ineffective use of study time, grades do not reflect the amount of effort. I like how the grades do not reflect amount of effort. You know how hard we had to work in school just to get the grades that we had, and was still terrible. Depth perception, clumsiness. That was us a lot, sadly. I mean, difficulty catching balls, difficulty judging distances, additional caution necessary while driving. Distortions, words on the page may appear to be blurry, moving, or disappear altogether. And it's crazy because, you know, when you have other things involved with stuff like that, it's so easy to understand how it can be overlooked for so many years. Like, when people think, well, how do you not notice stuff like that? Well, it's like, how would you notice if that's what you've had your entire life, you know? Let's see, others, we're not going to go into too much, but others are sensory overload caused by bright lights, fluorescent lights, and sunlight. Environmental distortions where the individual sees the world in a distorted fashion. Print distortions that make learning or reading difficult. I mean, it even goes into behavioral indicators. And it brings out Irlen syndrome affects 12 to 14% of the general population. 46% of individuals with reading and learning difficulties, 33% of people with ADHD, 33% of people with autism, 55% of people with head injuries, concussion, or whiplash. And you would think with as high as those numbers are, more people would know about it. But guess what? They don't. Which is probably why it took so long for us to figure anything out. But like I said, we'll post a link to the Irlen website. Their main base of operations is in California. If you do have Irlen filters made, they will have to send them there because that's where they do the overlays and the filters themselves. And it does take a while. We had to wait, I think, like 2 months for ours to get back because ours are also prescription. But we'll post the link to their website. We'll post the link to Julie's website. They even also have, like I said, the summary or the questions you can do to see if you may have Irlen's or not. Like I said, if you're going to be on more on the severe side, you're going to have 2 different screenings. One is the primary screening, the first one where you'll find a screener that will have certain overlays, figure out what papers will work best for you, what overlays are going to work best for you. Some people have the same color, some people will have different colors. It just depends on the person. And then the second screening is where you will meet with the diagnostician themselves, and they will go through the whole process. Like I said, depends on the person. Ours took like 2 or 3 hours, where they will go through the different filters you need to block out the different colors and the degree that those colors need to be blocked. Like I said, we had like 8 different filters on ours, so it can be pretty extensive depending on how bad it is. Now, if you do end up finding out that you do have Irlen's, we highly recommend getting this book, The Irlen Revolution by Helen Irlen. She was the original founder of the Irlen Clinic in California, and she also was the author of Reading by Colors, which is the first book that she wrote before this one. Very good insight, very helpful, highly recommend it. But anyway, that is the end of our video about Irlen syndrome. We hope it was helpful. If have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to comment down below, or if you follow us on our Pinterest and Instagram, you can hit us up on there. We're usually pretty good about keeping up with our messages. We try to check them at least once a day, so we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. But anyway, we hope you guys found this video insightful and helpful, and we'll see you guys next time. All right, bye.